Knowledge of language is the doorway to wisdom. Good morning, everyone. Respected dignitaries, Dr. T. Somashekar, Chairman, Indian Academy Group of Institutions, Dr. Srinidhi Parthasarathi, COO, Indian Academy Group of Institutions, Dr. E. Jerome Xavier, Principal, Indian Academy Degree College, Autonomous, the guest speaker of today's session, Mr. Syed Omer Farooque, Language Instructor, Mosaic Employment and Language Services, Canada, Professor Geeta Ravi, the Head of the English Department, faculty members and dear students, a warm welcome to you all. I deem it to be a privilege to welcome you all on the virtual platform for the international webinar on IELTS, Relevance and Introduction of the Test. The objective of the session is to introduce a young graduate to have an exposure to the most renowned international exam, IELTS. The International English Language Testing System, which is the world's most popular testing tool, enables us to get the best opportunity lined our way. This session will give us an overview of the IELTS exam and its relevance in this present world. I request Mr. Muhammad Jafar Sadiq to introduce the speaker.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to have you with us this morning, Mr. Farooque, and it's an honor to introduce you to all the participants. Mr. Farooque carries with him an experience of over 7 years in teaching, facilitating, and training. Having completed his MA English from Jain University and MBA in Education Management from Alagappa University, he has taught English at Christian College, Bangalore. He began his career teaching communicative and business English, IELTS, TOEFL to ESL students from various countries in Bangalore. Mr. Farooque has also worked in corporates such as Concentrix, Dutch, Accenture, Aditya Birla Minax, Just Dial, etc., facilitating training sessions on understanding various cultures, leadership skills, interpersonal skills, social etiquettes, soft skills, and English, while also developing content and material. As master trainer at Letus Education, Farooque worked in several Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities in Karnataka, training teachers and students in communicative English. He worked in Sri Lanka with government and the Ministry of Education to teach English to students in Colombo and Kandy. He has worked closely with Dr. Ali Khwaja at Banjara Academy, completing his diploma in counseling skills and facilitating sessions at several colleges, schools, and organizations in and around Bangalore. Having found Kinara Academy, Farooque conducted teacher orientation and training programs, parent orientation programs, and several teaching sessions for students in schools and colleges such as Red Hills High School, Carmel Convent, Adi Chunchandgiri Institute of Medical Science, Mount Carmel College, etc. After moving to Vancouver, Canada in 2019, Mr. Farooque completed Certificate in English Language Teaching to Adults from Cambridge University and the TESOL certificate. He now teaches English language to students in the country and newcomers to Canada, along with conducting courses for IELTS and TOEFL. We welcome you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sadiq. I now request Mr. Farooque to take over the session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for introducing me. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here today. And I hope this session is very helpful to all of you. And please reach out if you have any questions. And we'll probably have, we'll try and answer a few questions at the end of the session. So with that, I want to just start off today's session. I want to first take you through a few things. We know we're going to talk about the test. We will look at the relevance of the test first, and then we'll talk about the test itself. We'll talk about what are the different versions of the test, what modules are conducted, and why or how should you prepare for the test. Some of you may be aware of it, but we will do this quick introduction for the benefit of everyone who's joined today. Okay, just a quick, I know Mr. Sadiq has mentioned quite a lot about me, but I'm just going to quickly talk about one important aspect, and that is if you are looking for any English courses, any IELTS courses, please make sure you're looking at someone who's certified trainers. It's always good to have your training or learn from someone who's trained from important universities or colleges. Okay, so that's the agenda for today. We're going to first look at relevance. Like I mentioned, we will look at the test itself, who conducts it, and the importance of the test in today's times. And then we will jump into the different versions of the test. We'll talk about the components of the test and how it is scored. Right, so we know, some of us probably know, and ma'am also mentioned that IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System, which is an assessment to measure your proficiency in English language if you're looking to move to an English-speaking country for study or work. And please keep this in mind. This is a measure of your proficiency in the language, and no way a measure of intelligence. I know in our country, in India, we somehow connect knowing English to being smart and intelligent. That's not how it is. It's just a language, but it's important because if we are looking to move to an English-speaking country, that is where it becomes really important. We have the scoring in IELTS on a band. One is the lowest band is given to a non-user, and then band 9 is the maximum score that you can get, and that's an expert user. The IELTS is owned by and is conducted by Cambridge University, British Council, and IDP Australia. They are three owners, sort of, you can say, owners of the test. Okay, let's look at some quick numbers. It is one of the most important tests that that's conducted throughout the world. In 2018, we had about 3.5 million test takers in the world. That's a huge number, and that's why we see there, the amount of test centers or locations that we have. It's about 12,000 test locations in over 140 countries, and 48 tests are conducted throughout the year. So usually it happens on a Saturday, and sometimes on a Friday or Thursday. Sometimes you have the speaking test, but generally it's conducted on a Saturday. But things are changing now. It's getting a little more flexible, and this whole pandemic has taught us how technology can be used. So IELTS is also moving to has moved, in fact, to the computer. So you have greater flexibility when it comes to taking a test, but we'll look at that in a short while. Now, what is the reason for taking the test? We did mention it is used if you are looking to move to a different country for studying or for work. We also use the IELTS test for immigration purposes. So when you move to a different country to settle down in a new country, that is when the immigration agencies use IELTS test to assess your English proficiency. And why is it so popular around the world? It's because it's fair. I think that's an important aspect that differentiates IELTS and from the other tests. There are numerous other tests, but IELTS is fair, which means you have accents from pretty much all around the world. The main accents like the American accent, Canadian, UK, Australia, New Zealand, and plus sometimes you also come across accents from different countries. Widely available. You have centers like we just saw a few numbers. We have more than 10,000 agencies and colleges, universities accepting it, and you have over 16,000 centers or 12,000 centers that that you can write your test in. It's also reliable because it follows some strict processes. There's biometric security, which means they end up taking your fingerprints to make sure you're the right person who's writing the test. And then, of course, you have a few tests, English speaking tests, which conduct the speaking on the computer. So IELTS still follows the face-to-face interview with a person, so it gives you real life context, a real life scenario. Okay, so why is IELTS relevant in today's world? We know, and we speak about it. It's almost a cliche now that the world is a global village. With that, what's happened is our education also has become globalized. So a lot of you may want to do your further studies in countries like US or Canada or Australia, and this has led to the migration levels to skyrocket. You go to a different country as a student or as a worker, or you immigrate to a different country, or you go as a student and then you start working and then you start living there, or you're migrating to a different country for various purposes. Sometimes we go to a different country seeking better lifestyles, and that's what leads to a lot of migration. Sometimes we go to a different country just to get ourselves global education, and since it has become a global village, it's all on our fingertips today. If we are able to communicate between Bangalore and Vancouver today, it's possible because of technology, and that has also led to a lot of globalization in academics, and that's why IELTS becomes really relevant. So we'll shift gears here a little. We were talking about how is it relevant, but we will look at the test itself. What can you expect from the test, and how can you also probably prepare for it? Okay, I did go a little fast because we were just talking about a few general things, but here I'm going to go a little slow and try and see if we can look at everything in detail.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so the test, we spoke about this. We said that it assesses a person's proficiency in English language, which primarily is, or any language for that matter, the four skills, the four primary skills, important skills are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The IELTS test has two versions. We will talk about them, and we use different versions for different purposes. And we spoke about this, that you receive a band score in each of the four skills that we spoke about. So listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And the scores are combined to give you an overall band score. So sort of an average of the four skills. And universities, organizations, immigration agencies, they all have different requirements for scores. So whenever you want to take up the IELTS test, it's best to first identify which organization or which university you want to apply in, look at their criteria, what is the band score that they require from you, and then try and aim for that for that score, so it's easier to get admitted into the universities or colleges. Now, these are the two types of tests we have. We have the academic test and we have the general training, or GT. The academic test, as the name says, it's basically for academic purposes. If you're looking to study in colleges and universities, it reflects some of the features of that is required for academic language. It's looking at assessing your readiness for studies or for training. So any university or college you're applying for, they will specify that you have to take up the IELTS academic test. Some universities, of course, don't specify, but you still have to take up the academic test because you're going there for studies. So it's really important to choose the right test. In case you are confused about which one to take. If you're, let's say, applying for in a university and you don't know which one to take, it's always good to reach out to the college or the university, check with them before taking the test, because IELTS is expensive. I think in India they charge about 10 or 12,000 or 12,500 rupees for one test. So it's quite expensive. So you want to prepare well and you want to take up the right test so you don't have to repeat that again. General training is the other one, or GT, which is for people who are looking to move to a different country, either for work or for migrating, moving to a different country. So employers can ask you for this, and if you're looking to migrate, the immigration agencies can ask you for the IELTS test, and that time you will write the GT test. You don't write the academic test, because they are assessing different things. For GT or in GT, they are looking at if you are able to survive in an English-speaking country. So it's basic English language skills that they are assessing in a social setting, in a workplace setting, while the academic test is assessing your English in a academic setting in college or university context. So those are the two different types of tests we have. So let's move on from here. Now, we also have a choice, and this is what I was mentioning sometime earlier. We have the traditional form of writing the test, which was the paper-based test, where you were given paper and a pen, and then you write the test on that. Right now, a lot of centers are moving to the computer-based test, and I know a lot of centers in Bangalore are offering the computer-based test. The only difference between the two tests, if you're looking at which one do I take, there's not much of a difference in terms of how it is scored or what it assesses. The only difference that it brings in is results I've mentioned, which means actually the availability of the results. So you get your results faster if you're writing a computer delivered test. It's the results, you get it in 5 days, while in a paper-based test, you get your results in 13 days. So that's one difference. You get in the computer-based test, you get results faster. Flexibility is another important criteria if you're looking for a computer delivered test, because you can choose what time, what day you want to take up the test. They give you a whole list of available dates and times, so you can pick and choose what day you want to go and write the test. While in paper-based tests, you don't have that flexibility. Like I mentioned, you only can go to write the test on a Saturday. So you go up early in the morning by around 11 o'clock and you finish by 4:30. While computer-based test is faster and there's a lot more flexibility involved in that. Another important difference is, of course, you can actually review and edit your stuff. And on paper-based tests, you can still do it, but you know how difficult it is to edit. Of course, you will be using a pencil, so it's okay to just erase and write it. But then computers is better to to type and delete if in case you don't like something. The only in my opinion, at least, if you want to choose between the two, I would suggest you to go for a computer delivered test only if you're very comfortable with computers. Some of us are not comfortable, so we may not want to go for a computer delivered test. Like a lot of us, maybe all of you are, for example, very comfortable reading ebooks on Kindle and other apps. A lot of us, at least some of your teachers probably, and me included, I don't like reading on the computers. I like reading a paper or a paper back book. So I'm more comfortable using the paper. But if you're more comfortable using the computer, go for it. You need to be really quick or fast in typing because the time given to you for writing the test is the same. Is just that you need to type faster than you write. So if you're good with that, then computer delivered test is the one for you. If you feel that you're more comfortable with the paper, then the paper-based test. Of course, there are some compromises to be made. So I hope I've made myself clear with these options. And then let's look at the different components. And this is what I was talking to you about, the 4 skills that are assessed in any English test or any test for that matter, any language test for that matter. You always have 4 skills that are assessed. In IELTS, it is LRW and then speaking in that order. So you first have the listening test, which is for about 40 minutes. Basically, you get to hear people talking. You have 4 different audio clips, and the total audio clip time is for 30 minutes. And then you get 10 minutes to write down your answers on the answer sheet. So you get a total of 40 minutes. And then the second test is the writing test. I'm sorry, second test is the reading test. So it goes from the green to the blue. The reading test, you get 3 passages or 3 sections, and you get a total of 40 questions. Both listening and reading are the same amount of questions, 40 questions in each. And you get, in reading, you get 60 minutes to read the passages, write your answers in the answer sheet. Please note, in listening, you get the extra 10 minutes to transfer your answers from the question paper to the answer sheet. While in reading, there are no extra 10 minutes. You just get that 60 minutes of time, and you do everything in that 60 minutes. A lot of times, I've seen a lot of students when they write the test, they assume that reading also I get extra 10 minutes, and then they leave. They just don't write the answers and they miss out on everything. So if you don't write anything, if you just leave everything blank, which you shouldn't do, you get a 0, which is a score for did not attempt any answer or any question. But in listening and reading, it's an objective based scoring. So they will look at how many right answers you've got. So if you get all the 40 answers correct, you get a band 9, which is the highest. And then if you get between 36 and 39 answers correct, you get 8.5. If you get 35 to 36, you get band 8, and it reduces as you go, as you answer less and less correct answers. So always remember, you use a pencil, and it's important because then you can erase and rewrite immediately. But the reading is slightly different if you're taking up the academic test and the general training test, or the GT test. So most of you, as undergraduate and postgraduate students, if you want to apply for higher education in other countries, you will be writing academic. Remember, you get 3 passages, 3 academic passages, and you need to write about 40 questions, answer 40 questions in it's like an OMR sheet that you need to write the answer on. The next section, or the next module that you write, is the writing test, which is you get 2 tasks in writing, and you get similar 60 minutes, just like in reading. The 2 tasks in writing are a little different again for academic and general training candidates. So if you are taking up the academic test for higher education, you will get, in task 1, you will get a report writing, which is they give you a bar graph, a pie chart, etc., and you need to write a report, summarize that in words, and you get 60 minutes, like I said, for the total writing test. Out of the 60 minutes, it's suggested that you use just 20 minutes for task 1, because task 1 is for less marks. So you don't spend too much time on something that doesn't give you a lot of marks. And task 2 is suggested that you use about 40 minutes for that, because it's an essay and you have to write at least 250 words. And for task 1, you have to write at least 150 words. So a lot of a lot of people, a lot of students find writing to be quite challenging because there's a specific way of correcting it. They are looking at your vocabulary, they're looking at your grammar, they're looking at your ideas, and if you presented them in an order, in a logical manner, all of that is assessed. But it's important that you give the examiners what they're looking for, and you use these times to plan and write the test immediately. You don't get extra time for any of these. And then the listening, reading, writing happens together at one time, in one sitting. There's no break in between. And speaking happens separately. So you could have speaking a day or two before the test, on the day of the test, or after the LRW test. Speaking is just for about 15 to 20 minutes. Officially, it's for 20 minutes. That's the time, the time they give you. But you don't end, the examiners don't end up using all the 20 minutes. They use about 15 minutes, 14 to 15 minutes, because speaking has 3 parts, and pretty much in all the modules of the test, listening, reading, writing, and speaking, it becomes progressively difficult, which means the first task or the first section is always easier, and then it becomes more difficult and more difficult as you go by. So it's important that you practice well. You know how much time to spend on each of the passages, so you don't end up getting less marks. In speaking, as I mentioned, you get 3 parts. The first part you get is a general introduction. They ask you questions about yourself. They ask you questions about your hobbies, about your city and your hometown, etc. And it's very easy because it's personal. It's about you, so you can answer that easily. The second one, the second part, is it's a cue card where they give you a question. For example, they will ask you, tell me about a recent trip that you took, and when you're speaking, talk about whom did you go with, why did you go, and how did you enjoy, etc. So there's a cue card that's given to you. You get 1 minute to think about what you want to say, and you get 2 minutes to talk about it. So if you've played in school and college, if you've played Jam, which is just a minute competition, it's similar to that. So you get 2 minutes to talk about one topic. It may seem that 2 minutes is not too much, but trust me, you need to really practice, because sometimes you get stuck. You don't know what to say. Sometimes vocabulary, sometimes you're looking for words and you don't exactly know what you want to say. So it's very important that you practice, look at different questions, different type of questions, and make sure you are you're utilizing the entire 2 minutes to talk. When you get that 1 minute to practice, or 1 minute to prepare for that for this speaking for 2 minutes, make sure you write down quick notes. They will provide a pen and paper, pencil and paper, for you to just jot down important points. Of course, you cannot write long sentences because you just get 1 minute. So you need to write down important points about what will you cover, and then speak about that in taking help from your notes. And the third part is a little more difficult. The third part, they will talk to you about abstract ideas, your opinions about whatever you've spoken in part 2. So let's say, for example, in part 2, you spoke about, the same example of travel. Describe a recent trip that you took, and whom did you go with, etc. In part 3, they will ask you questions like, do you think traveling is important? Do you think a lot of people in your country travel? Do you think there are tourism is an industry that provides jobs to a lot of people? So there's a lot of opinion-based questions that they ask you, and that's why it becomes a little more difficult, because you are supposed to think on the spot and speak longer than you have probably spoken in part one. So part one, if the question is, for example, let's say, what's your favorite weather, or what's your favorite season? And then you say, okay, my favorite season is summer because I can go out and I can go and travel, etc. So you just talk about yourself, maybe about 3 or 4 sentences you finish. But in part 3, you are expected to speak about at least 7 to 8, 10 sentences. Give your opinion and justify why you think that is the answer. So if they ask you a question like, do you think traveling helps people live better? And then you say yes or no, and then you give reasons why you have a particular idea or an opinion, and talk about that entire thing for at least 2 to 3 minutes. And they ask you about 5 questions, maybe 6 questions, and then they end the speaking test. So that's about the speaking test. Now we spoke about the times that you get for each of the tests, and we spoke about what can you expect in speaking. I want to spend the next 5 minutes talking about what can you expect in listening, reading, and writing as well. Remember, listening, reading, writing is one group. So we'll talk about them one after the other. So listening first. I said you get 4 sections or 4 parts. Now it's called 4 parts. From 2020, January, there was a change and few changes in the listening test. So instead of sections, they call it parts. What is important in that is, again, the first section or first part is really easy. It's a conversation between 2 people, generally on a telephone, where one person's calling and asking or inquiring about something, about a very general topic, about something in the society. For example, the person's calling and talking about, let's say, inquiry at a hotel. So they probably call and say, do you have hotel rooms available? I want to book some hotel room. And then the conversation goes on for about 8 minutes or 6 to 8 minutes. And then you get 10 questions, which are divided into 2 halves, maybe 4 questions in each. And you listen to that. So let's say question 1 to 5, you have a few questions from the audio. You can read the questions first and then listen to the audio, write down the answer on the answer sheet, and then transfer the answer, transfer all the 40 answers into the answer sheet at the end of the section 4. So I hope that's clear. And then you move on similarly to section 2. Again, you have in section 2, it's generally just one person talking. It's a monologue where one person's giving out information about, it could be about a course in a college. It could be about a museum tour. It could be about orientation at a company, at an organization, different thing. It's just information that is given out in section 2. Section 2 can be a little more difficult because you have things, you have questions on different types of questions like multiple choice questions or table completion, etc. That makes it a little more difficult. And then section 3, when we go into section 3, it's again a dialogue. Sometimes you have 2 people, sometimes 3. And it's more of an academic conversation. It could be between classmates talking about their assignment, about their projects, or it could be between a professor and students talking about the class, talking about the subject, etc. So it's purely academic in nature. Remember, part 1 and 2 is non-academic, it's general. Part 3 is academic. Part 4 is also academic. So part 4 is where one person again is talking to or giving a lecture about a particular topic. For example, this could be a part 4 where one person's talking and everyone's listening. So in part 4, again, you get 10 questions. It's the most difficult one because there's no gap in between. All the 10 answers you get is one after the other. So it's really important that you pay attention to every word that's being said, write down the answer, the question booklet, and transfer it onto the answer sheet. That's your listening. Reading, I mentioned again, section 1, 2, and 3, or passage 1, 2, and 3, you get 40 minutes. Each passage you get about 12 to 13 questions, and then it's easier to write it on the question paper and then transfer your answers. But make sure you're spending only about 12 to 15 minutes on the first section, about 15 minutes on the second section, and 15 minutes on the third passage or third section. So when you do this, you still have about 5 minutes left at the end to either transfer the answers to the answer sheet or check your answers, make sure your spellings are correct, make sure you're writing it neatly so the examiners have no problem or they don't misunderstand your answers and give you incorrect marks. So writing, we spoke, I think, in detail about the writing. We have two tasks. Task one is for 20 minutes. If you're writing a general training test or GT, you get a letter that you need to write. Letter writing, which we have all done in school and college. And if you're doing the academic though, it's a report, like I mentioned. It could be a bar graph. For example, this is a graph, this is a pie chart. And this chart that you see on the screen right now, they can give you this and say, write a report on this chart. So you mention whatever you see, you put it in words, you write 150 words minimum, and you finish your writing. When you're doing the writing, when I say 150 words minimum for task one, make sure you're targeting at least for a 170, 180 words, because even if there's some errors and you want to cut out something, you still are in that limit. Because if you write even a word lesser than 150, you will definitely get lesser marks. Your marks will be deducted for writing less. So you need to write completely. And task two is an essay. Now the essay can be of different kinds. It could be agree, disagree essay. They could give you a topic. And for example, they could say, cars and automobiles are creating a lot of pollution in the world today. Do you agree with the statement, or to what extent do you agree with the statement? So you either agree with the statement or you disagree, and you say why. The number of paragraphs you need to write, it is at least 4 and a maximum of 5. We don't write more than that because one, there's no time, and two, you could be running out of ideas. So task two is for 40 minutes. So utilize the 40 minutes. Generally, what we say is 5 minutes need to go in planning the essay, the next 30 minutes in writing the essay, and the last 5 minutes in revising or editing the essay. So those are the skills that are assessed, and that's the crux of the IELTS test. And that's why we spent a lot of time on this, understanding what they're looking for and the different kinds of questions that you have to answer in this test. I hope that's clear. We will take a few questions towards the end, so you can ask them in the chat. Okay, as far the scoring is concerned, remember there's no pass or a fail in IELTS. You get a band score. You get minimum of 1. Even if you write just one answer, you get 1. But of course, do not aim for that. You should be aiming for anywhere over 7 and above. That's because a lot of universities and colleges that you probably will apply in will want a minimum score of a 6.5. I've not come across a lot of colleges, universities which want lesser than that. Sometimes 6, yes, but 6.5 is like a standard. 6.57 is a standard. And the more score you get, the higher band you get, the better. So try and aim for that 7. 7 is translates into a good user. 8 translates into a very good user, and 9 translates into an expert user. So that's the equivalent, or what band 9 means, that you are an expert user of English language, or band 8 is a very good user of English language. So as I mentioned earlier, each of the skills that we spoke about just now, the listening, reading, writing, and speaking, each of them get a band from 1 to 9, and those are combined and averaged, and an average is taken to give you an overall band. So let's say, for example, you get You get 6 in each band. So that's 6 into 4 is 6, 4 is 30. I'm good at English. I'm bad at math. So 6 is 24, and 24 by 4 is 6. That's the overall band score you get. So individual score for each of the modules added and then divided by 4. So that's your overall score that you get. Technicality, a little bit of technicality here. The score that you write, a test that you write, the score is valid only for 2 years. You cannot use that for more than 2 years. Some universities may accept it. Some universities may be okay with it, but majority of the ones will want something in the recent past. So they will look for in the last 2 years. So if it expires, you may have to write the IELTS test again. But there's no limit on the number of times you can write the test. You can write the test every week if you want to, or every day if the test is available. But make sure you only do the test, or you take up the test after you've done some practice, because a lot of studies point out that language sort of improves if you don't do anything at all. As a general progression, your language can improve over the next 2 years, and then you put some more efforts, it increases more and more. So that's why you have the 2 years validity for the IELTS test, because the level of your language will remain the same for the next few months. But you can certainly practice. What is, or how do you practice, is basically you looking at the type of questions you get, and you're trying to understand the technique in answering those questions, or how do you attempt those questions, and that's basically what you're going to work on when you say you want to practice on the IELTS test. So the next one talks about that, some of the practice tips, but I just want to say it again. IELTS is not an intelligence test, it's an English test. No way, because I have come across students who, really feel that they're not intelligent for some reason if they get less marks on IELTS. Please make sure you keep that in mind. It is no way assessing your intelligence. There's different tests that you can do to find out if you're or your IQ, not IELTS. IELTS is just purely an English language assessment. What you need to do to work on your on the language is follow the right language learning model. When we say this, what we mean is every language, the way you learn, or the natural way of learning a language, is you first listen to the language as much as possible, and then you speak the language, then you read, and then you write. So that's how your language learning should be. Any language that you've learned. Take, for example, your own mother tongue. How did you learn the language? You did not learn the language by first writing the letters on a book, but what you did was, the first couple of years of your life, you just heard the language, you listened to it, you gathered a lot of ideas of how to make the sound, how to create a sound, and how to put sounds together to make a word, and how to put words together to make sentences and to be understood. So the first thing that you need to do, even with English, is listen as much as possible. And that one step is something that we tend to miss a lot in how we learn a new language as adults. So listen to the language first, and this can be over different mediums. You can talk to people and listen to the language. You can watch movies, you can listen to songs, you can listen to podcasts, and you can listen to, there's a lot of avenues right now to listen to the language. So that should be your first step. The second step would be to practice speaking. So speak as much as possible. Whatever you listen has to be put into practice. So you speak the language as much as possible. Try and use words and phrases that you hear in your spoken language, and then you move on to reading the language. And a lot of times students come up to me and say, how do I improve my score in reading? There's unfortunately not a really quick fix for it. Reading is important, and it's achieved over a period of time. So it's important for you to read whatever you get. You can read books, you could read your academic books, you could read novels and stories and poems, etc. Whatever you come across. That's why reading every time is said to be a really good habit. So you need to read, cultivate that habit of reading, because reading will also help you with writing, because these are connected. So listening and speaking, listening and reading, they are called they are called receptive skills, because you are receiving information. There's not much of creating that you do, but with the speaking and the writing is when you do a lot of creating yourself. And then that's why they are called productive skills. So they are connected. If your receptive skills, if your receptive aspects of the language is good, your productive skills also become important. So all these skills are interconnected. So if you do the listening well, you can speak well, you can read well, and you can write well. If you are good with your listening and reading, your speaking and writing become good as well. So it's really interconnected, and it's basically one influences the other. Moving on to the next aspect, we spoke about this enough. A lot of practice is needed when you're working on the language, and then also working on the test. We need to understand the format, the question types of each of the tests. How do you answer the questions? What are you looking for? Which part of the passage, for example, you need to go? How do I attempt a particular question? You need to practice that a lot. And then you should also add, in fact, practice with the test material. You have a lot of material online. You can practice with that. Study materials, you get a lot of free study materials on the web. Internet is a place where you can get a lot of things for free. You can make use of or learn from your teachers and language instructors around you. And you could also ask for the experiences of the people who've written the test to understand what exactly they are looking for in the test. And you could also learn the language through movies, TV, podcasts, etc. I also teach online. I have this is just platforms that you can follow. I have a YouTube channel and Spotify to listen to and learn the language or learn about the test. So that's something that you can do. But a lot of material is available online. If you just Google IELTS practice or IELTS tips, you get a whole lot of things. Just make sure you make a proper study plan and practice as much as possible. Well, with that said, that's the end of my what I had to say. I would be really happy if you have any questions and I can answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Farooque. It was a great session. We are now open for questions. Please post your questions in the chat box, and I'll be reading out the questions to Mr. Farooque.
Thank you.
Okay, sir, we have a few questions from the students. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the first question is from Vikas Gupta. He asked that in a computer-based listening test, do we get extra 10 minutes for transferring the answers?
Fantastic question. That's another aspect of computer and paper-based that we probably didn't touch. In the paper-based test, like I said, you do get 10 minutes to transfer your answers because you're writing the answers on the question paper, not on the answer sheet directly. In the computer-based test, on the other hand, you don't get extra 10 minutes, you get 2 minutes to basically check your answers. That is because when you're listening in the computer-based test, listening to the audio, you can just select or write down your answers immediately. So there's no transferring happening. You just are listening and you're selecting the answers in multiple choice or matching the following or filling the blanks. So you just get 2 minutes to check if you've written all that right. So.
Okay, sir. So he also asked, which test would you suggest is a better one? The computer
Okay.
based, he's asking for your opinion.
Right. So I don't want to really say what is good for you, because there's really no difference in the way it's conducted. The material that you get in the tests are the same. In fact, if you remember, I mentioned that there was a change in the listening test earlier this year in January 2020. They made the change. The first test with the changes was on January 4th. The change they made was aligned to how the test was conducted on the computer delivered test. So my opinion or my suggestion would remain the same for you. Choose what you're comfortable with. Some of you are really comfortable with the computers, with your typing, because remember, task 2, it's still 60 minutes and you need to write 2 parts. So you need to be really fast with typing. With the reading, it's interesting with the reading. What happens is the screen is divided into 2 halves. So on the one side, you will get the passage. On the other side, you get the questions. So you're reading the questions there. You can highlight it. You can, you know how you select the mouse and you highlight it. You can, put a color, like whatever color you like, and you can immediately answer the questions on the right. So in the paper-based test, sometimes it can get a little cumbersome because you're moving around on the paper pages, turning over pages over and over again. But in the computer delivered test, it's broken into 2 screens, so you can scroll up and down individually, and you can choose whatever is the right answer you can write. So my suggestion to you is choose what you think is comfortable. It's a good habit to just practice the test on your own. So computer delivered test also you have practice tests available. Just type IELTS computer delivered test practice. You can take up individual tests, listening, reading, writing, and speaking, and then do one test on the paper and see what you're more comfortable with before you choose which one you want to take. I hope I've answered that question.
Okay, sir. So there's another question from Jai Lakshmi. Do you think answering in capital letters would help us score better?
I want to say it doesn't affect your score directly, because some of us have, and this is a fact, some of us have really bad handwriting, including me. My handwriting is really, really bad. My school teachers were terrified of my handwriting. Anyway, so what happens when you think you have a bad handwriting? You don't want to write cursive on the answer sheet, because then it becomes difficult to read, and sometimes your answer is misunderstood. So in the listening and reading, it is okay to write in what we call printing the answers, that is writing in block letters or writing it separately, not cursive. So you can still do that in the listening and reading because you have the time. You cannot do that on the writing test. Writing test, it needs to be fast, and they're also looking at your grammar. So are you using capital letters after a full stop and things like that? That's important. So it is okay to write in capital letters in listening and reading, but make sure if you choose to do that, all the answers in listening and all the answers in reading are in capital or not in capital. But if you're not writing in capital, just make sure that you follow the right one. So if you're writing a proper noun, the first letter needs to be in capital. If not, then it needs to be in small letter and things like that. That is important.
Okay. There's one more question here. A participant wants to know what's the difference between the TOEFL and IELTS, and which one is larger in scope?
Okay. there's, like I mentioned, there's quite a few other tests. There's TOEFL, there's CELPIP, there's a whole lot of other tests that you can take, Pearson's, etc. All of them assess the same things, LRW and speaking, listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The difference between TOEFL and IELTS is primarily in the way, the type of questions you get the same. You get multiple choice questions, you get fill in the blanks, etc. The way it is, separated is different. The way the questions are asked, or the way, for example, the listening. In IELTS, you get 4 audio clips, but in TOEFL, it's smaller bits that you listen to. Having said that, TOEFL has lesser acceptance. Well, it is accepted a lot, but it's more so in the US. So if you're looking to apply in the US, make sure you're looking at the university website, your college website, and seeing if they want TOEFL exclusively, or are they okay with IELTS. IELTS is more global, I would say. But don't mistake me, TOEFL is also accepted throughout the world, but it's lesser in comparison with IELTS. So IELTS is more accepted, more centers that you can write in, and more countries you accept. IELTS is accepted in the UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries, while TOEFL is majorly in the US.
Okay, sir. There's one more question here. Is there any specific technique to improve the IELTS scores to score better in reading?
Okay, that's a good question, and something that I think I did mention to you guys some time back. With reading, I did mention that it's a longer process. So it's something that you develop over a period of time. But for doing it quick, one important thing that you need to do is practice reading in different ways. So you have something called reading for specific information. You have something called reading for details. You have something for reading for inferences. So the way you read, it depends on what type of question you have in front of you. Sometimes you're just looking for that particular information, then you're doing reading for specific information. But this is the way, this is the goal. But how do you read? What you need to do is you need to do something called speed reading. You need to be able to read very fast because you don't have time. So there's something called skimming and scanning. We don't have enough time for me to talk to you in detail about this. So you could do a little bit of homework of what this is. But very quickly, if I were to tell you, skimming is reading to understand the summary or getting the gist of a paragraph or the passage. And scanning is when you're looking for that particular word or phrase or that particular information. So you need to do a little more detailed one on that. That itself can be one different session in itself. So we will not go too much into detail, but do look it up.
Okay, right now we have a long question, sir.
Okay.
Participant wants to know why is this test so necessary, and is it required for all the students who go abroad? I think these are all related questions. So if you could give us a gist, okay? Where is this test conducted in Bangalore, and what extra benefits does this examination provide us if we take this examination, and what's the cost of the examination? Can you please tell me the online platform in which we can ask you questions? I think it was quite a long question.
Yeah.
Should I repeat it?
No, that's okay. If I miss something, I'm going to ask you again. I apologize in advance. But then, so the test is really important. If you're applying, if you want to go abroad, you definitely have to take this test. Very few universities are okay if you submit a letter from your university stating that your education was in English, but that's not all the universities. And even for that, you need to have a good academic record. That's number one. In Bangalore, in India, the test is conducted by only two agencies, British Council and IDP. I know in Bangalore, I used to be part of the British Council team that conducts the IELTS tests. They have a lot of different centers that they conduct in. It's usually conducted in like big halls, hotels. So you need to go there to do this. I don't know currently which are the hotels, but some of the hotels that the IELTS test was conducted in when I was in Bangalore included Ashoka Hotel, the Lalit Ashok. It was conducted at Nathan Hotel or something on Airport Road. So Leela Palace. So different hotels are they conducted in. I think there was also another question about what are the other facilities that are given, if I'm not wrong.
The question was like, please tell us the online platform in which we can ask you questions.
Ask me questions. Okay. Well, if as I mentioned, I have my YouTube channel, and I am also I also post podcasts on Spotify. Just check for Ministry of Literature. You can ask me questions. I will be able to answer them there, and then you could probably follow that, because I don't regularly, but I try to regularly post some material, so it's good for you to just practice a little bit. I hope that's all with him.
I think there's a last question for you.
Sure.
What are the procedures of getting certified as an IELTS trainer?
That's a brilliant question. If you're looking to teach English, it's anybody can actually do a course to and teach English. You don't have to specifically do like an MA English course. I think a few years ago, I used to come across a lot of people who would say, oh, you have to do an MA English course to do it. No, not necessarily. There are some specializations that you can take up. Certainly, MA English definitely helps you. It's a platform that it gives you. If you are in your undergrad and you want to take up English teaching as a profession, I highly recommend doing an MA English, because it gives you not just language, but overall worldview is is really, really great. But you also have the other specializations or shorter courses that you can do, like CELTA. CELTA is one important course that's given to you, that's provided by Cambridge. So CELTA is Cambridge English Language training as a second language. I'm sorry, CELTA, I forgot the full form, but CELTA is an important one. I'm a CELTA certified trainer instructor, and then you also have the TESOL certificate. In India, if you want to do the CELTA, it's only offered in 4 cities, Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi, and Kolkata, by British Council. Only they offer CELTA courses in India. If somebody else is promising you that, it's probably not CELTA. But you also have other colleges and institutes that offer the TESOL courses, or TEFL or TESOL, TESOL courses that are offered. So you can also either do that as well. But a lot of times, what you can do is just get into teaching on your own. Like I started teaching at an English center, and then I did a lot of that on my own. And I very recently, a couple of years ago, did my CELTA course. So there's opportunities for you. Definitely a lot of opportunities around the world, actually. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farooque, for answering all the questions. Collective work is the secret behind the success of every initiative taken, and gratitude is the fairest outcome, which springs from the soul. Now I call upon Ms. Sandhya to propose the vote of thanks.
Yes. I deem it a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks. I take this opportunity to thank the management, Dr. T. Somashekar, Chairman, Indian Academy Group of Institutions, Dr. Srinidhi Parthasarathy, COO, Indian Academy Group of Institutions, for their continuous support. Thank you, sirs. I thank Dr. E. Jerome Xavier, Principal, Indian Academy Degree College, Autonomous, for encouraging us to conduct such insightful events. Thank you, sir. I thank Mr. Syed Omer Farooque for delivering a valuable and helpful lecture for our students. Thank you so much. I am sure that the students will make use of this session in their future endeavors. I take immense pleasure to thank Professor Geeta Ravi, head of the Department of English, who has always inspired us to organize such webinars. My dear colleagues, it was wonderful working in a team. Thank you all. Dear participants, without your presence, the program is not complete. We are very happy that you are in good number. Good number. Thank you very much for making this international webinar a success. My special thanks to Mr. Chandan Rao, Technical Manager, to have helped in organizing this event. Once again, thank you all. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandhya. Please check the chat box for the feedback form, and please all the participants you are supposed to submit the feedback form. We sincerely thank everyone for actively participating in this event. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me over. Thank you.